Hey folks, Dude here, and well, this is going to be time number 2 for tuning your 60-70 Marlins and knowing how to do it correctly without breaking anything. But first, let me give you a minor interruption in service because I was giving a minor interruption in service. It seems that these guys said, yeah, you got 15 minutes now, enjoy yourselves. Only one small problem, they don't tell you when you run 1/2 a second over, they refuse the upload. So I gotta do this all over again. YouTube, let me give you a little illustration here. You know what this is? That's 5 of these. That's right. Okay, having released some umbrage. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, part number 2 of how to tune your Marlin 60-70s. All right, from top to bottom. In number 1, the upper receiver in the barrel, there's nothing really wrong with them. They work pretty much as stated. They do exactly everything they need to do, with one minor exception. And let me show you what they need. Inside the upper receiver, you have got a few rails. They're basically part of the receiver. They're just a raised area that the actual bolt rides on, and you can just barely see it stepping up. If you want to go a little crazy and get these things a little smoother with some wet dry, pull your scope, sand them down. Don't go too crazy, but, smooth them up a little bit. And then hit them down with some oil, because we all know aluminum oxidizes pretty good in, a normal atmosphere. That's all you really need to do with the upper receiver. As a matter of fact, you probably could just shoot it bone stock and just, you'll be cleaning paint out when the paint wears off, because these are actually painted. They're not anodized. Nothing crazy there. Okay, so that's upper receiver and barrel. They work fine. Don't wet dry your stuff with a scope on there. Pull that off first. Don't drown your scope. Okay. Next, we have the, you know what? I'm going to get into these trigger groups later on. I'm going to get into the lower receivers later on. Right now, I'm going to tell you about the bolts. Okay, so pretty much you got, what it starts out as and what it becomes. It becomes a butterfly. All right, now, here's the main things you got to worry about on the bolts. The bolts come out, they're rough, they're coarse. Remember this one I was showing you? Was it this one? No, it was this one. This one's actually got, it's got tooling marks on it. Man, that's that's bad. It needs attention. Okay, also you notice that the radius that the hammer rides in, it's not exactly gentle. So what you can do is you can come up with a slight hybrid, and you make it easier for your hammer. That's right, you make it easier for your hammer. You give it a nice smooth area to ride up on, and that's fairly easy to radius in. You need to have the proper size file. Read like a small file. I tend to use on gun stuff something known as a safe file. That would be a file that has got, it's got cutting surfaces, but the sides have got no teeth. Notice this one is a safe file and this one isn't. That's correct. One's got teeth, one has not got teeth. Use a safe file. That way you're not making stuff that was, previously 90-degree corners, all hogged out and nasty looking. Don't do that to yourself. You create more work than you need to. Okay, now in terms of working on something and filing stuff, you kind of need to know where to stop. If you don't know where to stop, you're basically going to keep ragging on things and you won't know exactly when to stop cutting. So what you can do is you can do exactly what they used to do back in the good old days when they made guns back in, England. They made stuff back in Europe. They used to always have a lamp. The lamp would be, probably like a kerosene lantern or something along those lines, except for one major difference. The lantern was available with the flame. They would hold the part over the flame, and they would load it up, and they would smoke it. That was known as a smoker. Now, they probably were smoking, but I'm talking about something else entirely. So what they used to do is, when they used to get the part, they used to put a layer of soot on it. Just like that. Except I'm cheating, I'm using a magic marker. Modern times, modern conveniences, don't need to have a lamp going with fire hazards. Okay, so we now basically have our part. Let me grab the appropriate file. We have our part sooted up. We want to know basically where to stop filing. So we have it sooted up, and we file. Could use a little more. And we file. And we file some more. 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 That's looking pretty freaking good to me, folks. In this one, I've actually worked on a little bit, so I know I didn't need to go crazy. As a matter of fact, I probably could lay this thing down on some sandpaper and touch it up, and it's going to be good to go. Now, in terms of the bolts, what areas need attention? Well, the whole bolt is rough. The whole bolt needs attention. The whole bolt needs to get polished up. Okay, you could conceivably put a file down, and you could chase it all over the place. I'm not going to do that on this one. This one's pretty. You could chase it down all over the place and possibly change angles. I got better technology. You put down a board, you put down a piece of sandpaper, you put your part on there, you stay flat, you stay flat, you stay flat, you continue to stay flat, and when you're done, you have nice flat surfaces. Okay, so what areas on the bolt really need the predominant amount of your attention? Okay, anytime you have surfaces riding on surfaces, that's going to be your major wear areas. Chase it down around your hammer, chase it down around your riding surfaces, chase it down on the sides, chase it down on the top, chase it down on this little guy right here, chase it down inside the area where the handle goes, because the handle is going to be, that which you need to use to lock the gun open. Notice I've played with this one, so it's nice and smooth. Okay, on the handle itself, you've got the front edge, you got the back edge, you got the inside, and of course, you have the lock area. I tend to go a little crazy on the lock area because I really want this thing to lock up well, and I want it to slide easy. When I go to break it open, I want to basically have it locked open, pushing the handle, which is a dual-purpose tool. You push it open, and it locks in place. Comes time, you roll your finger, it's going to snap open. Of course, bolt's going to go forward, it's going to ring around in, and it's going to load it up quick. All right, other areas that need attention on these are going to be as such. On the right side of the bolt is usually pretty good. The roller, let me find out how the bolt. Okay, the roller that is in the bolt is actually what works the cartridge lifter on the 60s, which is the tube mag. It's redundant. They don't take it out for the 70s because it also is a firing pin retainer pin. That firing pin is not budging. Okay, that's another area that needs attention. This groove that's in the center of the underside of the bolt is where the firing pin rides. You're going to need to chase that out with a very thin file or a very careful application of fine sandpaper, and you keep doing that until it's smooth, pretty, and it allows stuff to move smooth and pretty. Of course, you also want to take the firing pin out and sand it on both its surfaces and get it shiny. There's a lot of bluing on there. It might actually be gunked up with crap. Clean it up. Okay, so what else also needs your attention on the bolt? Well, the extractors. Let me find a fire cartridge. The extractors are as such. We have a round locked up in here. The right side is your main extractor. The left side pretty much holds it in position, keeps it stable, and, well, it kind of helps a little bit on extraction, but 22s, with the exception of a bad chamber, extract fairly easily. If you can put a lot of tension on there and it's not moving, and I'm putting like 20 pounds on there and it's barely breaking, that's actually a pretty good extractor. It's actually a pretty beat up case. That's why it's popping out so easy. But it's taking a pretty good amount of tension before it's breaking loose. Okay, the passenger side is the main one. The driver's side is a helper. It pops off pretty easy. Okay, also, on these bolts, the left side extractor will protrude. Let me show you that case again. Okay, notice the left side extractor is protruding just very, very slightly. Once you put a cartridge in there, yeah, see it go? You can't use it as a cartridge loaded indicator because you can't see it inside the gun. That's inside the receiver. Okay, now, this is going to project quite a bit. This is also a piece of hard steel rubbing in an aluminum receiver. It's going to cut a groove. It's going to wear your receiver out prematurely, and it needs to go bye-bye. Hence the piece of sandpaper and the board. Sandy, 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 until it looks like that. I have a very, very, very slight protrusion. I can live with that because once there's a roundup, it's going to go hide. Yeah, that's all it does. Okay, now, firing pins most of the time on these, most of your American guns, almost always, they will drive a pin, respective of the part, from right to left. correspondingly, you need to remove the pin going from left to right. Now, here's the thing. If you lay it down and you put your punch in there, tap, 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 no action, flip your part over. Potentially, you could drive the pin through, but you're going to be hogging out the holes when you do it. Don't do that. Okay, so, bolt, pretty much any major surface needs to get sanded. The ears, the relief, of course, the area that cocks the hammer, all the major bearing surfaces, all those need to get sanded, smooth, and what have you. Now, where do I start out? Okay, well, let's see here. Typically, I'll start out 150 grit, and I'll probably finish up somewhere in the order of about, where's that piece I was using a minute ago? Where has my sanding stuff gone? I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm going to say it was 800, but it was 800 wet dry, so if I need to cheat, I can actually take it in, well, put it in some water and get some way to flush all the crap out that I'm, sanding on. That's good stuff to play with. Okay, now, also, the bolt basically gets all that stuff. The firing pin gets all that stuff. All those pins and everything you got to worry about. I don't know if I'd really worry about pulling the extractors. If you want to be anal, yeah, you can do that. If you want to really flush the hell out of it, after you're done doing all this sanding, grinding, what have yous, grab a can of brake clean, hose the crap out of it. Literally hose the crap out of it. You will not be amazed by how much crap falls out of it, but you will be shocked. Okay, correspondingly, the guide, which would be the spring, return spring, the action spring, whatever you wish to call it. This pin is usually pretty rough. I usually chuck it in a drill, sand it, touch it up with a file on the tip as it's spinning, get it prettied up. The spring itself is actually decent stuff. There's not like a Wolf extra action strength spring or anything for these guys. They work. It's got a very, very, very slight kink in it because it's hard to get these things out perfectly straight. Just be careful with them. But anyway, the springs themselves are good. I have yet to wear one out. The guide rod needs assistance. Okay, so that's those major parts of the upper receiver. The charging handle, well, it probably needs the predominant amount of attention after the bolt. Because if it is really hard to push in and out, you're now fighting a loaded gun. You're now fighting a gun you're trying to unload. Potentially you're letting a bolt go on a cartridge, buggering up potentially decent cartridges. That's never fun. You're just ruining ammo and taking away from your enjoyment. But technically, you could start with something that's rough and you can make it better. This is an older one, so actually you can see that the machining on them was it was a hell of a lot better than it is now. This is a fairly recent gun and I put a lot of work into it. Yeah, I also kind of go a little crazy when I'm relieving these because I like to have a nice big pin so everything locks up very easily and it unlocks very easily. And if you look at it on the bolt, okay, let's see. Yeah, there's not a lot of over travel, but it does bottom out on the bolt as opposed to the other one, which was fairly meaty, fairly substantial, and you can see how much I've removed. I've actually taken out a pretty good chunk of metal because I'm not getting centered here, I know that. I'm not getting centered here. I know I've actually taken out a pretty good chunk of metal because I want this thing to move easy. I also know where I take the metal out, and I don't take out excessive quantities, but I want everything as smooth as I can get it. Okay, so this is going to be basically upper receiver, bolts, what have you. Pretty much everything you're trying to get to look good, you want smooth. You want polish. You want ease of movement. You want nice, smooth. And I can tell you for a fact, folks, just pushing these two bolts around, there's a big difference between the drag on this one and the drag on this one. I mean, it is dramatic how easy this one slides compared to this one, and they really don't look that much different underneath. Just one's, well, that much prettier in terms of polish. In terms of actual age, okay, let me show you all three of these bolts side by side. What the hell, I got a couple seconds here. This would be the newest, that would be really old, that would be semi-old. Alright folks, so this is going to be part 2 of tuning your Model 60, Model 70 Marlins, and I'll go on from there, and of course, I'll be doing trigger groups and all the rest of this falderall, and of course, Mrs. Dude is probably calling me at this very second to really trip me up. I'll be doing trigger guards, and I'll be doing lower receivers probably in the next section, and we'll go on from there. Okay, folks? I need to keep this thing under 15 minutes, or they're going to screw me again. Alright, folks. See ya, and of course, orders!